Let's move on to the Northeast State, which I think is a conference in transition, if you will, because there are so many changes. And I want to say, New Haven has been in that conversation of, we always talk about they're top heavy in that conference, 2 or 3 teams each year. Jimmy Lynn, although he's been at New Haven for a long time as an assistant coach, he takes over for Jim Rowland, who had been the head coach for 17 years. And I feel like Andrew McCormick played 17 seasons himself at East Noble. He's now at Indiana State. So they're looking for a new playmaker and a new leader at East Noble. Meanwhile, Leo continues to be in that conversation. They return a ton of starters, and they return their starting quarterback, who's a 3-year starter. How do you see this conference playing out? And is it kind of the same 3 old guys at the top that you think will eventually determine who wins the conference title here?
I do think it's the same 3, East Noble, New Haven, and Leo thrown in the pot. And I put Leo atop right now, just for, as you mentioned, the experience that they return. Alex Wortman at running back. You have A.J. Restivo at quarterback, who I believe is the best returning quarterback regardless of conference in the area.
I agree. I put together my preseason Fab 15. There have been years when we've had like 5 or 6 quarterbacks on there. I almost couldn't put a quarterback on there because I wasn't sure who the guy was. I was like, I guess it's Restivo.
I know. It came back for me. It was Restivo and Tim Jordan. It was 2 NE8 guys. The SAC is void of proof. We talk about Jake Bird coming back for Concordia, but he had 17 picks before he got hurt. He's got to cut down on those turnovers. So, yeah, you look at on paper, you look at New Haven with Tim Jordan and the running back, Stephen Owens back. They're going to be very good, but Leo just across the board returns so many guys. The big question for them is the wide receiver position, where they graduated guys. And Cameron Livingston, the 6'3 junior, I think have a breakout season for Leo. They're a top right now, but I think you can interchange those top 3 right now.
Yeah, Gosger, Hovack, Reese Decker.
Trenton Bonner's was a big part. Yeah,
was a big weapon for them. Do they have some guys to I guess kind of fill those holes? But you like Jaden Elwood up front, especially on the defensive line.
And I think
Kyle Miazga, offensive line. They got players in the trenches too.
I absolutely agree. Jaden Elwood, to me, is the best defensive player in the NE8. I mean, that kid is a beast up front at nose.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
Yes, he's very good.
Game 1 for Leo will be Woodland. How much can we glean from that? Because you're talking about Woodland. Here's a team that came off a state championship game run last year, but graduates a lot of guys. But then again, you talk to coaches around that conference, they're like, man, they're still loaded. They're still just as fast. They return a lot of guys on defense. It almost seems like Sherwood-Haydock is reloading more than rebuilding, which is weird to think where they were 10 years ago at Woodland, that we kind of expect them to still be good after they graduated such a talented class.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for me to see just how much Woodland has fallen off. And I think falling off is inevitable because no matter who they replace or who they return, the guys they lost were just too big of a hit for another crop of guys to step up. Woodland isn't Snyder. They can't replace what they had last year with light guys, in my opinion. They're going to play a different style because they have a different group of seniors this year than last year. So that's a big question for me, Woodland and Leo. I still think Woodland's in the conversation, the ACAC. I like Adams Central. I like South Adams. I think that Woodland comes back down to earth this year in the ACAC. But that's a big question for me. You ask Coach Sherwood-Haydock the offseason, he's one of those guys that tells you like it is. When he says we just don't have the talent that we did the last couple of years, he's not lying to you. He's not. He will tell you straight up. Yes, he will tell you straight up how it is. So I want to see how those guys that he didn't expect to be as good talent-wise have developed over the summer. They get a big test with Leo on Friday.
Columbia City was an interesting team for me last year because they went 5-5, which is the first time in 5 or 6 years they finished at 500 or better. They returned some talented players this year, but their schedule historically is backloaded.
Yes, it is.
They play those powerhouses they get some momentum at the beginning, then they play the powerhouses at the end.
Yeah.
They beat the teams that they were supposed to beat last year, and then lost to teams you would assume that they would lose to. How do they kind of overcome that? Because Brett Fox, I think, has done a pretty nice job there and is really starting to build some momentum for them.
Yeah, and it's a step forward that they beat the teams they're supposed to beat last year, finishing 5-5. They're 4-1. Then they go into that gauntlet with New Haven, East Noble, and Leo, interchanged, who they played week 6, 7, and 8, which is exactly how the schedule lays out this year. They have the 3 bigs back to back to back, 6, 7, and 8. So, talking to Coach Fox, last week, he said, we found out where we need to be last year during that 3-week stretch. We were really confident, 4-1, felt we were playing good football. We were, but we knew what we had to do after those 3 weeks to reach that next level in the NE8. I don't know if they're there yet. I think they're the best of the rest, if you want to speak about the best of the rest in the NE8. But it's still a big jump to get up there, and it's even a bigger jump to get up there and stay there at the upper echelon of the NE8.
The teams that finished on the bottom half of that conference, DeKalb, Belmont, Huntington North, and Norwell. Of those teams, who do you see as taking the biggest step forward this year? I
think DeKalb is going to take a step up. I think Norwell is on the right track as well. Huntington North's kind of difficult. You know, they have the big guy up front in Damon Kaler, but do they have the weapons elsewhere to score consistently? That was the problem with Huntington North. Years ago, they could score with everybody, but they also gave up 50 points a game. Now they can't score, so that's a big problem. So where does Huntington North? They have to get better. They're too big of a school to go 0-10. So you have to think they get a couple wins, but that bottom half of the NE8 is very difficult to see which team is going to jump up.